Lupus LA would like to thank our generous sponsors for their support of the Your Story, Our Fight podcast. Mallinckrodt Pharmaceuticals is focused on managing complexity and improving lives. Their work in the autoimmune space is critical to finding new and innovative treatments for lupus. Emerge Business Solutions serves as a personal and professional CFO for clients across a wide spectrum of industries. They handle financial affairs with integrity and transparency. Lupus LA is proud to work hand in hand with Emerge to manage all of its financial needs. Gemini Beauty believes in beauty for a cause, and in their case, the cause is lupus, creating products to specifically address the needs of lupus patients, but with broad appeal across all skin types. The team at Gemini is changing the skincare game for good. Find the gem in you. Hello and welcome to another episode of Lupus LA's podcast, Your Story, Our Fight. I'm your host, Adam Selkowitz. As always, I want to thank our incredible sponsors, Mallinckrodt Pharmaceuticals, Emerge Business Solutions, and the good folks at Gemini Beauty. Today, this podcast has been a long time coming. We've been scheduling back and forth with Raven, but you're going to meet an incredible woman today. Raven Lexime is I call you a powerhouse, but you have a really powerful story, and we're going to talk a little bit about. I want to really get into when you were diagnosed, because I know that was a really, really hard time for you. Now you're a property manager. You're super busy. I want to talk about that too. But tell me a little bit about sort of your early lupus diagnosis story. And I feel, if I remember correctly, you had a fairly dramatic early symptom that led you to your diagnosis, right?
That is correct. So a little bit about my diagnosis is that I've always been very outdoor. So anything dealing with the gym, dealing with hikes. And I noticed prior to being diagnosed in 2014 that I was not being able to keep up anymore. I was extremely exhausted. I had a lot of joint problems, which I assumed that it was, from being so heavily active in sports. And one day I went to work and I passed out and got taken by ambulance, which was embarrassing to say the least. And from there, it was just doctor visit after doctor visits until I came upon my doctor now, who said, I think you have lupus. And since then, my world has been upside down.
How long in between when you passed out at work to the actual diagnosis?
I started experiencing symptoms around 2012. And really, I just thought, because I'm such a workaholic and, it was like play hard, work hard kind of thing. I didn't really pay any much mind to it. I would go to the doctor, they would just shove it off and either send me to physical therapy or tell me to take a couple days of relaxation, and send me right back off to work. So I, didn't think, you're trusting your doctors who know best, right? To kind of tell you what's happening to you. And, it was kind of one of those things that you always know that something's wrong, but you're just like, oh, okay. The doctor says nothing's wrong, then nothing's wrong.
Right. And then you had the passing out incident. Was that more towards 2012 or closer to 2014 when you were diagnosed?
It was actually in mid 2013. I was just making a transition to a different property location in downtown LA. And I just passed out and was rushed to the hospital. And I was there for about 2 weeks. Kidneys were swollen, body was swollen. I had a tremendous amount of pain in my joints, and none of the tests that were being done and being poked and blood being drawn, the doctors were just confused.
So were you treated after you got out of the hospital? Did they put you on something that sort of, did you get better in between then and when you were actually diagnosed?
I got a little bit better, but I wasn't the same. As a person, you know when you're not feeling well, and you know when your doctors prescribe you in any situation medicines, and it doesn't seem to be, working. You know something is still wrong, and I'm just the type of person that I try to push through. So I end up going to work, but I stopped going to the gym. I started canceling out on my friends. And finally, I just kept having to make appointments after appointment, go see this specialist, go see this specialist. And, having certain type of medical insurance, you got to get the referrals, you got to wait. Are they taking new patients kind of thing? So it was kind of almost like trial and error, to say the least, which was really frustrating on my end because, you know, I didn't want my friends to feel like I was flaking on them, but at the same time, I'm like, something's not right.
Hmm. So I know that when you were actually diagnosed, there was, I think, a lot of the people that I've spoken to that have gone through your story, there's this big sense of relief. But with you, I know that you had a different emotion when you were diagnosed. So tell me a little bit about that.
Um, I, not to be so dramatic, I thought when they told me I had lupus, I thought that was the end. I thought I was going to have to
Mm.
call my mom and tell her, like, I'm dying. Like,
Ugh.
I don't even know what to do. Like, all these crazy thoughts were in my head. Like, did I live my purpose in life? Like, is this really it? Like, at such a young age, like, for me, my world came crashing down because at that point I realized, like, I would not be able eh, to put it plainly, I thought that I wasn't going to be able to do much. That meant in my mind, I was already bedridden. And that's the
Hmm.
best way I can explain it, because I thought, like, okay, I'm not going to be able to do the gym. What does this mean? Like, can you elaborate? What is lupus? And at the time, that particular doctor, was like, I need to send you to a specialist. So that
Hmm.
even made me more frustrated because I'm like, you can't just drop this diagnosis on me and then tell me, like, I need to go see a specialist. Like, what does that mean? Like, am I going to, between now going home and waiting for the referral to come through, what's going to happen to me? So I didn't have necessarily a relief moment. It was more of like, geez, I need to start closing closing down shop kind of
Oh,
say.
yeah. I mean, I can see that sort of the panic of it all, and the overwhelmingness of it all. Um, Now, what I find really interesting about your story too is that, and correct me if I'm wrong, but you didn't really tell anybody about your lupus diagnosis when it happened.
No, I did not tell not a soul. Actually, I didn't even come clean to my mom until 2015. Um, and we went on a trip to Vegas, and I told her I wasn't feeling well. She realized, like, she would call me thinking I was at work and just said, hey, call me when you get off of work. And I'm like, oh, I'm off work today. Oh, okay. Is everything okay? Yeah, I'm just not feeling well. I took the day off. Um, and so we took a trip. We planned a trip to Las Vegas. And I mean, uh, I must have been a truck driver in my past life because driving long distances was never an issue. That was the hardest 4.5 hours of just sitting up with my knees bent. We constantly had to make stops, and she's rubbing my back, and she's like, "Yeah, you want to eat? You want to stop here?" I mean, it was a lot where I can do that drive straight through. And
Hmm.
we went to dinner when we got to Vegas, and um, she asked me, she was like, "Well, do you want to tell me what's going on?" And I was like, "Well, Mom, I don't want you to panic, but I was diagnosed with lupus and I'm having a hard time." kind of wrapping my head around it. So I don't want you to worry. And of course, as a mom would do, she's like, "Oh my God, like, what does this mean?" Like, we're both crying at dinner. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, I mean, how do
So
you
when you
tell
told your
people?
mom, when you finally told your mom, because I'm assuming that was really challenging for you. Did that release of telling her start making you feel better? I mean, did that help you at all?
Yes and no. It finally gave me kind of a relief in the sense that, like, on the days that I'm not feeling so well, I have someone else to talk to. Um, but really, I'm always been kind of like the elder child, so I'm always the one taking care of family. And really, I'm like, oh my, in my mind, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to take care of her because I'm struggling with my own. I used to call lupus my demon, and dealing with my own demon, and then my mom being diabetic, high blood pressure, you know, um, she had just had surgery on her wrist, and she, had to have, schedule an eye appointment to get, cataracts removed, you know, all these things happening. I'm trying to still be strong for her and not really understanding I need to also be strong for myself. So it was a relief, but at the same time, added pressure.
I was just to say that's so much pressure on you. I assume that weight and that responsibility only added to the stress that also then adds to the illness.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of the things, with lupus is that it just comes. It comes when it wants to come. Some days, like, you wake up and you're still tired, you're still achy, but then there's days where you're just like, I don't even want to leave the bed. And so, what if I needed to run an errand? What if I needed to um, go to work? How does that life look for me at that time? Sorry, I get all a little choked up talking about it because a lot.
That's okay. No, listen, that's totally okay, and I respect that. I think a lot of people who get diagnosed with lupus, you know, there is that warrior instinct that we all have, and sometimes it comes out right away, and people say, "I'm going to beat it. I'm going to do this," and I've told that story a million times. But I think your story is a little more. Um, Probably shared by a lot more people than we think, um, because I think there's a feeling of incompleteness that you're not going to be able to complete the things that you wanted to complete. And so tell me kind of that feeling, not just the family part, because I know that's a big part of it for you, but what about your professional goals and your dreams that you had, before your diagnosis?
Whew. Um, my goal was to, at that time I was just wrapping up school with the University of Phoenix, and I had to step away from that because I was constantly tired. A full time employee, 40 plus hours. I was a manager. Um, Working downtown LA, I had events, I had, city hall meetings, I had crime prevention meetings, at the LA station on Main Street. So sometimes I would go to work 6 o'clock in the morning, 7 o'clock in the morning, and wouldn't get home until 10 o'clock at night. So trying to, open my laptop to do school, it wasn't an option anymore. Um, and professionally, I didn't want anybody to see me not be the superwoman that everybody, you know, always knew about me. When I transferred from Orange County to downtown LA, um, I followed, it was a referral from one of my really good friends. And, you know, if anybody can say anything, I'm the hardest working woman in the room. So I'm always in before everybody, and I'm always the last one to leave. So it was kind of tough having to really put on a face and make it seem like everything is great when in reality, you know, I was getting depressed. I was getting heavily depressed. Um, and having to take medication, adding added weight that I'm not used to, not being as active, it took a toll.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it did. All right, we're going to take a quick break. On the other side, we're going to talk about how you turn that around, how you attack this demon full
Yes.
force, and it's really why you're sitting here talking to me today. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back with more with Raven.
Lupus LA's Facebook Live chat series connects leading lupus and health experts with our community to answer the most current and important questions. For more information, visit lupusla.org.
We are back on the Lupus LA Your Story, Our Fight podcast, talking to Raven Lexime. And so lupus was the demon. Lupus was this block for you when you got diagnosed. You didn't tell anybody. So what was it? What was the breakthrough that flipped that around?
I think with me, and I could be speaking to a lot of people listening into this podcast, with any diagnosis, right? You feel like your life is being taken away from you because it's a chronic illness. And so I think a lot of people don't talk about the mental health portion of being told by a doctor that you're ill, and especially an illness that they're not really sure of. So for me, I did the unthinkable, and I actually applied for a different property management company that brought me to the IE. And the work pace was a lot less than what I was doing before because it was a new development. So it kind of gave me a little bit more time to deal with me and all the things that I was dealing with at that time mentally. And I had to get to know myself again. Um, as hard as that may seem, right? I should already know myself. I'm a successful person. I'm outgoing. I have family. I have friends, right? But when you're told that you have a chronic illness, a part of you kind of leaves instantly. So you have to kind of relearn yourself in the new manner of your diagnosis. So from there, I started going on hikes. I started going to therapy, which was really tough because, here's this person sitting on a couch across from you, and they're like, talk to me about what's going on. And, you know, you go to therapy for no judgment, but at the same time, you're like, are they judging me? Like, what are they going to think about my story? And I kind of had to really, when speaking, I had to really understand why I was feeling that way, why I felt like this was the end of the world, and um, what can I do to kind of get back in my purpose. And so I made slight little changes. I also kind of did the research. I was given a flyer for Lupus LA. They were having like a meet and greet in Orange County. I went to that and met an amazing person by the name of Samantha. And, she kept me going for that first year alone, 2015, when I moved to the IE, moved away from friends and moved away from family, kind of was a loner for a minute. And gradually, I started telling people about my diagnosis, hoping that I wouldn't be judged, that they wouldn't stop, inviting me to places. And if they did, understanding if I didn't show up.
Mm-hmm. Well, I always am happy when Lupus LA plays a role in helping people attack their illness, and I'm glad you went out. I'm glad you went to that event. I think the therapy part is really interesting too, because I think a lot of lupus patients are, super tough people on the outside, even before their diagnosis, and that's a hard thing to do. And how did opening up in therapy change your outlook on the disease?
I think it changed my outlook to let me know that it's okay. It's okay that, um, you know, I'm a human being. One, I'm not perfect. And two, instead of dwelling on what's happening, what am I going to do to change it? And not necessarily, right? There's no cure for lupus, but I think more so how to deal with it on a day to day, with it coming around to me and my daily functions of living. If I go on a hike, maybe not do the most difficult trails to prove a point.
Right.
The fact that I went on a hike should be congratulated, pats on the back, well job, good job and well done, type of situation. If I, got invited to a birthday party and said, yeah, I'm going to go, be okay with people not understanding, that you're not feeling well and that you can't always be everything to everyone. You got to take care of you first. And I think that's where therapy was so therapeutic for me, because I always was that person to be there consistently. And I had to start putting me first, to make sure that I'm okay.
Were you surprised with the reaction you got from your friends and family?
Yeah, like I found out, like one of my closest friends, her cousin's daughter had lupus. When I started telling, sharing my story with people at work, and they would know the difference of a good day and a bad day. Are you not feeling so well? And I end up meeting someone else who battled with the same thing in a different department. So it kind of was like, oh, I'm not alone. This is great. um,
Right.
going to being invited, given that flyer and going to an event for lupus to kind of understand and be with, other patients or people who, is assisting family members or friends with lupus and trying to get a better understanding. It doesn't hit the same way as you knowing someone personally,
Mm-hmm.
going through the same thing, right? So it was kind of, that's where I feel like I was able to exhale for the first time. Like, okay, so this is not just me out of the millions of people that live in this planet, right? It's actually people that are very, really close to me in proximity of work and family and friends. So it definitely was a game changer for me to, you know, stop feeling bad for myself and to go live life.
And what's been the biggest surprise since you did that?
Um, I will say that I was invited by a friend in 2018, and she had this crazy idea to join a fitness boot camp. And I was like, oh my God. 6 weeks of hard training, 2 classes a day. Um, and the instructors there, amazing. And I think that was a surprise to me because I was very, kind of like turned off by going to the gym. I didn't cancel my gym membership, I'm just paying it. And I was like, yeah, I guess I will go. And to be able to do 2 challenges, to meet more people who struggle with the same thing that I was going through, um, I mean, I've met so many people and we had so much similarities in stories. I think that was like my greatest moment. And now I'm, it's still a struggle every day. Like today, I don't feel good. Yesterday I didn't feel good. Yesterday was, to say the least, like
Yeah.
a non-day for me. Like I did not leave the bed at all. But today I woke up and I said, you know what? Today's a new day. Like you got stuff to do. And, if you don't get everything done, it's okay. It's
Well,
okay.
I'm glad you did this because
Yes,
I
right?
know,
I'm
right.
so happy
We've had to reschedule because of all sorts of things over the course of the last few
right.
months.
Yeah.
But you're so inspirational to me. I think what you're saying is so important for so many people to hear. I think that the fact that you really took this journey and started out with lupus as your demon and hiding it and really internalizing that so much. And now that you've found your voice and you're sharing your story with, at least
Everyone.
thousands of people that are listening to this, right? We hope, or, pass it along. But I think that's going to be really, I think you're going to be helping so many people out there who feel the same, who are stuck right now in that demon phase. And I think that's so important. And what do you want to say to those people who are right there listening to this now in that battle with themselves? They're not telling their friends. They think their life is over. What's your message?
Ooh, that's a really good question. I think one, if I had a message to give to anybody who's listening out there, for me, I would say, trust your heart. Trust your heart to know that you're not alone, that there's not going to be easy days. There's going to be some difficult days. There's going to be days where you feel like you're going to give up, but to remember the people that are around you are going to support you. There's great organizations that are out there that are going to support you and give you the resources that you need. And most importantly, to remember to give yourself a little bit of a grace, give yourself a little bit of grace and understanding that each day is going to be a new testament to your story and to your journey. And that's the best gift you can give yourself.
Amazing. I couldn't say it any better. And I appreciate you sharing that message for sure. And if you need a property when you're in the Inland Empire, Raven is the person to talk to for sure, right? Come see Raven. But listen, we hope, thank you so much for doing this with us. And I know your voice is only going to get bigger and fuller, and that's going to help you, I think, in your whole disease process, in your whole life, and great days ahead for you, Raven. Thank you so much for joining the podcast.
Thank you for having me, Adam. Thank you. Much appreciated.
On behalf of the entire team at Lupus LA, we thank you for joining the Your Story, Our Fight podcast. Please tune in, spread the word, and come back for more inspiring lupus stories. I'm your host, Adam Selkowitz, wishing you good health, and to always remember, your story is our fight.